Hello everyone, welcome back to the Block Homes server, and as ever I'll be your archfey of Clockwork Memory. And today I believe there is some much overdue work that must be done. Unfortunately, Lost Memory has seen somewhat better days, and few better days have been seen than in my bedroom, which somewhat bore the brunt of the dragon that decided to roost into my, admittedly at the time, somewhat unoccupied basement, and rudely awoke me some months ago. So, going to have to deal with that. Now, it is fairly straightforward. The first thing that we'll be doing here, I believe, will be the doorway, because mortals always seem to enjoy putting doorways in front of things. I'm not entirely certain why. It would seem far easier to just walk through, but doorways apparently are a big important thing for them. And for that, we will need some rotational power, and the obvious nature to go for would be to attach it to the main power supply of my entire property, but I fear that there may be potential design flaws if we do that. Namely, that whilst this is a fairly robust power supply, it is used by the entirety of my workshop, as well as the grinder system down below, and it is powered quite substantially by these 15 water wheels, which does make quite the nice inclusion to the room, I think. It looks very nice, very rustic. I do enjoy a good bit of rustic design. But whilst these water wheels are fairly powerful and have quite a bit of torque, we frequently run it through an accelerator, which means that the amount of torque we have spare is significantly reduced. And whilst we could expand this further, it would be better simply to have a system that doesn't have the possibility of being overtaxed simply because it's not being used for anything else. So to that end, today we will be setting up a fairly small, probably not very fast, but we will nonetheless manage, doorway system for here, just to ensure that I have the beginnings of our nice little bedroom. And perhaps next episode we'll get to the decor, but let's see what we can come up with today. Now, there are a variety of generator devices, as it were, available, so let's just have a look at our water wheels, which produces relatively meaningful power whenever it is simply covered in water, but the stress capacity, which is the main concern for us here, is relatively low. Now, we could do this by hand, using a crank, which is similar capacity, but then we would have to manually open our doorway, and that's, frankly, rather distasteful, I feel, for someone of my stature. The among largest possible options is the furnace engine, which can be somewhat abused, I feel. We can give it a great deal of RPM if we do that, as well as a substantial amount of stress capacity. Similarly, the windmill bearing, but I don't particularly feel as though we should muddy up the aesthetics of our wonderful tree. And especially having a windmill underground seems... I don't think I've seen mortals do that. It seems like it would be a bad idea. Which leaves us with our water wheels and the encased fan. Now, of the two, the water wheel obviously provides significantly greater RPM, but we can hear it right here, in fact. We can hear it right here, and I feel as though my bedroom should perhaps be relatively quiet. So, instead, we will be using encased fans for this purpose. And let's get 4 of them together just to make sure we have a decent amount of torque to our name. And it's relatively simple, just regular cog wheels, plus an andesite casing, and a propeller. Quickly jumping out of my actual, like, personae here, iron plates changed their recipe, or changed their manufacturing process in the most recent forms of Create. We are not currently running that on this server, so I won't be showing you how to make the plates in this episode because it will be out-of-date information. Good? Okay, back to the RP, I guess. Now, the only way that an encased fan will provide power is that it must be above a heat source. The simplest and most stable form being a magma block. If we place a magma block with an encased fan, ideally facing the correct direction. Where did I leave my wrench? Most probably in our workshop here. Yes, there we are. Very good. And a simple power. 124 of these. Oh. And we should see that there is. There we are. A very minor, but nonetheless stable degree of rotation. We can make this even better just by having a redstone block in between our different engines here. So, using this, we should be quite able and ready to make a stable power supply that is not very powerful, but for operating a single doorway it shouldn't need to be very powerful either. And then it becomes simply a matter of controlling that to ensure that it doesn't interfere with anything else, which again should be fairly straightforward. So let's see where we can put this. Obviously our source of rotation will be up here, so it would make the most sense to have our power supply up there as well. We could put it down here, but we would be in greater risk of running afoul of our workshop. So to that end, we'll start up here. Fortunately, I am having some difficulty with my pickaxes and equipment because it prefers to deal injurious amounts of harm to me rather than simply restoring itself, so oh well. Let's see, can I find exactly where that is? Or alternatively, can I simply find a way to get in here? Let's see. There we are. Ah, a perfect fit. Okay. So, let's clear up some space here, because unfortunately our particular choice of generator is going to be somewhat on the bulky side. Ow. All the way. I could use my other pickaxe, which does not have Silk Touch, but does have Excavate, but it is somewhat of an uncontrolled method of removing large areas, and we are looking for a bit of precision here, suffice it to say. And we should only need 3 by 3, or close to that at least. But I will need to go and get a little more of the magma blocks. Here we are, very good. And yes, magma blocks, some shafts, and a little bit of belting, which is very simple to make, simply dried kelp. Although I do not know if I have any more kelp. Well, there should still be something left around here, I'm sure. Oh, I should probably store away this contract. I'm sure that'll come in handy. Am I truly out of kelp? Seems unlikely. There we are. let's see. Is this simply smelting? I believe it is simply smelting. Which means we should be able to use it in the bulk. Yes, there we are. We're right here. Just wait for a short moment. Shouldn't be any trouble. There we are. And then... there. We will need two in order to hook these things together. And we may need a rotation speed controller in the future, but for the moment I think we should be fine. Let's see. 4 shafts should about do it. And we're going to need a few gearboxes. I don't believe there's anything else, but we'll get to the construction and see how we do. Let's see, and then mechanical belts to control these together. Very good, so now any one of these particular shafts will have all the torque over the combined encased fans, which is going to be considerably greater than if it was simply alone. And a pair of vertical gearboxes will allow us to combine it into a singular horizontal gearbox. Very good. Now we need only 3 magma blocks and a pair of redstone blocks. If I can just about... there we are. Let's see. Redstone, redstone, redstone. Ah, plenty of redstone. In order to provide them some power. And there we have it. Just missing one of our magma blocks, but I believe I can stretch to reach that. And there we have it. Let's see, what are we generating here? 64 stress units multiplied by 4 is 256. Now that should provide us with significantly enough, like, not a massive amount, but a very simple, low-grade power supply, I believe, just to get us started with this. And we are next going to need something approaching a rotational source. I'm also going to need to make more shafts, because I'm evidently quite out of them. But let's see, bearings. Do I have a bearing around? Yes, I do. One mechanical bearing right there. Of course, we don't have a door just yet, but I should, at the very least, be able to make this and have it spin for the moment. All I need to do is connect that to here, and we should be able to get this going, but of course first, shaft. I do not... ah, there we are. Andesite alloy. Straightforward. Now let's see, connect that to approximately here. I'll need a pair of gearboxes, of which I have only the one, so perhaps we can get a little bit more creative. There's always some fiddling to do. Alright. Now, how to connect this? Needs to be one step backwards. There we have it. Not the cleanest means, but enough at the very least. And now let's simply connect some blocks to that, and we should be able to make well, something that spins. Not necessarily the exact final design we'll be using, but something that spins. And let's use some stone bricks for the moment. Let's see. I'm going to need some glue. Ah, there we are. A most superlative glue, in fact. There. Certainly not very much to look at this exact moment, but we should at the very least be able to get it to work. All we need to do is right-click this. And there we are. And here it comes back around. Oh, very good. Almost has a bit of a swinging blade aesthetic to it, but we'll be doing more on this with the next episode. I hope you've enjoyed this rather simplistic introduction, but I'm sure there'll be much more interesting things happening further on. Until then, see you next time. You wouldn't give your name and credit card information to an archfey, but you can give your name and credit card information to me at patreon.com/lying, where you can get access to monthly rewards like custom audio clips, early video releases, behind-the-scenes content, and the monthly Patreon Games Day, all for as little as $1 a month. So to support future content, that's patreon.com/lying.